Welcome, team. Welcome to episode 11, Nash Push Podcast. This is your host, Nash, and my man, Alwin, Mr. Co-host himself. And we've got Katie today. Katie's back with us. Thanks for joining us again, Katie.
Thank you for having me again.
So good.
It's always a pleasure to have you. And, first of all, we want to congratulate on your clothing lineup, which I think you released. Or is it coming soon? Is that right?
Oh yeah, coming soon. So I'm doing my own collab with NZ Muscle, my own range, which is awesome. Exciting. And
that should be very exciting news.
Yeah, I know, it's really cool. So that's they're all like being made at the moment. So they should be dropping within the next month or two. So that's exciting.
So have they got your logo on the side with NZ Muscle, or is it just yours?
Nice.
It's literally, so it's like, so rather than it being like printed, like the NZ Muscle being printed on there, we've got like new badges which are gold and they're like say NZ Muscle on them, and then they've got like, I basically I'd written my handwriting and they got my handwriting made into like a badge, and that's like sewn cool on it, so it's got my name in gold on it. It's really cool.
So good.
That's awesome.
That's
so cool.
The handwriting, it's so cool.
Far out. Very
customized.
Yeah.
You have no idea how many times I wrote down my name.
Really?
And I literally wrote like 1,000 times. I was like, when you just like overthink it and it starts looking weird, and then you're like, I got there in the end. So
that's so cool. That's seriously. So you'll be seeing people over there like Katie's stuff very soon.
I know. I'm so excited, and I just it's gonna be sick. I'm so excited.
That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Far out. It's Mental Health Awareness Week this week, and I thought it'll be. I mean, we all thought it'll be great to sort of talk about it from the aspect of the fitness, from the perspective of the fitness industry, and but hey, do you want to just talk about what mental health sort of means to you from your perspective? You're welcome to be as transparent as possible, but just talk about even what you're seeing from your perspective with New Zealand as well.
Well, I think so mental health, I'm definitely seeing that it's a lot easier to talk about than what it was. I myself dealt with issues with it from when I was much younger, and I know that from when I first started using social media to now, there's definitely been a lot more open discussion, and it's a lot less taboo than it was. But just because it's less taboo doesn't mean that people feel confident enough to talk about it. So I think it is important that the people who are confident enough to talk about it do. I'm kind of one of those people who sometimes I don't mind talking about it, but when you're dealing with raw emotions, it can be really hard to talk about it because you're still actively going through it. So I found myself feeling sometimes that I had this obligation to talk about it, but I understand that when you're going through something, it's the last thing you want to do, right? So right now, because I'm in a really good place, I'm more than happy to talk about it. But if I wasn't, that's when I would isolate and suck in and be like, I can't, it's too much. So it's definitely from my own personal experience, I know there's different spectrums of mental health in terms of anxiety or more depressive or more different versions, whatever you want to call it. But I do believe it's just as important, it's a part of your physical health. It's
100%
what's going on inside your brain. And so I think it, the whole health and fitness, wellness, holistic health approach. So every single part of your life kind of approach to health and well-being has a direct impact on your mental well-being. And I know that from experience, and obviously all my research at uni and everything like that, scientifically there is a connection. And you know, from my experience, I know there is as well. So I'm really glad that anyone who's in the health and fitness industry who relates to it does talk about it, because I do feel like it does interconnect. So yeah, that's kind of like my opinion on it.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's a big issue because I've had a couple of mates who've actually taken their life off because of this situation. Actually, I know these guys who used to come to the gym and all that. It's actually really sad, because it's just something that and it's even hard for me to explain. It's just something, as Katie was saying, like a feeling that sometimes it's a lie, right? Okay, these are all lies that people believe in, but but in that moment it's actually so true, because you believe in it and you don't see it as a lie, which can cause to depression, anxiety, and all that, or all that kind of stuff. I was going to ask you a question. My main question is that have you ever been in a moment where you were working or with friends or etc., and you've just had this panic attack or this anxiety attack, or just come out of nowhere,
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. Like even when you're working?
When I used to work at Les Mills, it would happen quite often. That was probably when I was at the peak of my chronic anxiety, where I felt like I couldn't drive. It would get so much anxiety, and I couldn't leave the house sometimes. I would literally have an anxiety attack at work, because my job was to approach people and interrupt their workout. Because at the time I was a gym instructor, and my job gave me anxiety, and I just I've totally had that happen before. That was before I kind of took I started managing my health, and I was into the gym, but I wasn't fueling my body properly, resting properly, practicing mindfulness. I hadn't gotten to any form of self-care at that point. I'd just been going to the gym, right? So this is where it transfers from being into fitness to being into holistic health, because as I started, not just saying fitness is about going to the gym, and started implementing health into my other areas of my life, that kind of the panic attack stopped. And I feel like the majority of my anxiety is probably social anxiety, which sounds ridiculous.
Okay.
Wow.
I'm a very social
person.
That's
crazy.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, your picture is almost everywhere.
Doesn't that sound stupid, right?
Yeah.
It's so ridiculous. Have you ever heard the term of an extrovert introvert?
That's right.
I feel like, in an environment that I'm really comfortable, you can't shut me up. I'm literally blah, 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 blah. But as soon as I'm uncomfortable or my social battery runs out, I'm just completely gone. And there's a difference between social battery and anxiety. So social battery, I mean, I don't know if anyone's had this thing where you've been sitting there and you've been there for a few hours and you're having a good time, and then all of a sudden your social battery runs out and you're I kind of don't want to be here anymore.
Wow.
That is different to, say, for example, that's one thing that happens to me. The other thing that happens to me is if I have an event on, so for networking or a business opening or something, and I'm so anxious, I get the worst social anxiety. I'm who do I speak to? What if I have no one to talk to? What if I'm not wearing the right thing? What if, and I'm going freaking out in my head. And if there's one moment where I haven't got someone to talk to, I start freaking out. So I'm lucky enough that a lot of my friends are influencers or get invited to these things too, but right. On the odd occasion that they're not, or if it's a friend from, for example, uni, who none of my really good friends know, it's just me that knows them and I'm going alone. It's stuff like that. So yeah, I definitely get it. I'm very, very comfortable in my work environment, at NZ Muscle. So I'll be hi to anybody, because I'm just so comfortable. But yeah, put me out of my comfort zone and it's like a whole different ballgame.
Wow.
Yeah,
fair enough.
Yeah.
And I know people who like have, like so many people who get the same thing, like who you wouldn't expect.
I could fully relate to the whole extroverted introvert thing, because that's what I am as well. Like I really find that you know, when it's people, like especially if it's with my family, that I will not stop either talking or just being the almost like, you know, interact as much as interactive as possible. But as soon as it's a new surrounding, it's like, oh, like, you know, it's a completely new ball game. Yeah. Yeah.
Totally.
I was gonna ask as well, you know, with there's always this stereotype, there's always a, you know, it's not a stereotype, it's more of a statistic where it's people that tend to have, I guess, a family history of it, or a or I don't know, your family history, gene pool, all that, that those are the people that only experience mental health issues or just problems with the way they think. That is, from my perspective, I mean, I believe that's not true. But when you're hearing things like that, what's your take on it? What's your perspective? What advice can you give to people?
I think that it's like definitely like, I don't think it has to be like a genetic thing. It can totally be an environmentally developed thing, but it also can be like a physiological response. So like, for example, I've got like, you know, I've spoken to my parents, and when they're a similar age to me, they felt, you know, like had felt depression before. And when I and my sister's not so much depression, but anxiety, absolutely. So I do feel like there's like some sort of genetic impact that it has. However, I do know that like when I was having chronic anxiety and chronic depression, that's when I was, you know, and on like medication and everything, that's when I was not looking after my body at all, you know, like partying, drinking, drugs, not sleeping, not eating well, you know, like mentally overstressing, a lot of pressure on myself, you know, like just everything, you know, had like what's the word, like it was just seen, and that's how it presented itself, was through, you know, that response, right? But I do think like, so I do think like if you're, you know, I think there's definitely like, I know it's a hard one, because a lot of people who say haven't had it in their family or don't understand it or haven't had friends who've had it before, they almost feel like when they tell someone, people don't take it seriously and think they're like making it up. Whereas if you have it in your family or know someone who's dealt with it, you're like, no, this is what it is. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like having some familiarity with it, you can label it easier. Whereas a lot of people would just like, oh, why am I so down? It's not that, you know, it can't be that. Like, you know, don't want to be seen as someone who's like making it up almost, or like milking it.
Milking it, yeah.
So I think with that, I found that was probably one of the most upsetting things for me, was when, you know, I reached out for help and people thought I was making it up, you know?
Well, yeah.
So like, I think, or like, you know, just using it against me as well, you know? Like, I think that, like, I think we're kind of past that now, but I think that like in the time where I was feeling like that, it wasn't as openly spoken about. That would have been probably about 10 years ago now. So yeah, there's been a big shift about talking about it now.
What do you think? What do you think has caused that? Do you think it's maybe a statistic, the statistics that have caused that, maybe especially here in New Zealand, or do you think because it has been almost like a transformation of how it is portrayed altogether, where it's
Well, if you think about it, like, say, I do put it hugely to social media, because when I was dealing with that stuff, I was 18. That's when I started using Instagram. I would never see anything like that talked about on it. And now you see people in their bios saying mental health advocate. You know what I mean? Like it's a part of like their branding, for example, you know. And I think that like it's really interesting that like, and you know, and same with like, you know, with TikTok coming out and all this stuff, and like, you know, even back for like, even YouTube's been around for ages, you know. But I think it's more that people, so what social media does, it exposes you to like-minded people, right? So with the increase in these platforms, there's been, people have been able to find people they can relate to. So I do 1000% put it down to networking, the ability to network with people who, like, I don't believe that the numbers have changed. I believe that the level of communication has changed. So I just feel like people are able to talk about it more because they have the ability to reach more people who feel the same way or have been through the same thing. Whereas before they, you know, didn't have so many platforms to do so. I think the more open people are, the more people who are feeling this kind of stuff feel like they can have the tools to deal with it, basically.
I don't know about you, but you know, I think New Zealand is one of the, I think, what was it, like top 5, the suicide rate, is it?
Something bad. Yeah, it's really bad.
Very bad. I think it's actually one of the toughest countries. And you know, Nash and I, you know, Nash, you come from Zimbabwe and I'm from Sri Lanka. And actually, like, honestly, like, our country has the least, right? Like, you know, technology wise and like, you know, everything wise. I think, you know, we have the least because this kind of, you know, New Zealand or England, Australia, they are way ahead in, you know, those kind of departments. And also lifestyle wise, like, everything's just super, like, fancy and big, right? Like, my question is, why, when people have these wonderful, you know, opportunities and you know, wonderful jobs and, you know, wonderful people around them, how come this is the top 5 or whatever suicide rate in the world, when, you know, if, for example, Africa or like Sri Lanka, like, you don't even hear this stuff?
I just think I put it down to the she'll be right attitude for sure. I think it's just the culture. Like, I think, like,
culture, yeah,
you know, like, it's the culture here for people, you know, like, it's like, as soon as I moved to New Zealand, I noticed people were more judgmental. I was 10, you know, I was 10 years old and I noticed that. Like, you know.
What like, do you mean by judgmental?
I mean, I don't know. People were just like, I mean, people were just like, I'd never felt such a sense of, like, I remember, like, walking into the playground and I could just see people talking about me. I was like, what is going on, kind of thing. Like, I think New Zealand's so small, like, in terms of, like, 2 degrees of separation. Like, everyone thinks they're more important than they are, which sounds really bad. But, like, say if you're, like, in, like, New York or, like, London, you know that you're one of millions in that one city. That you don't, you know, I feel like because we're so privileged here that there isn't, you know, there isn't as many people, I don't know, it's just affected the way that some people are here. It's like the whole, you know, Auckland's notorious for tall poppy syndrome, you know, like, I just think that, like, yeah, there's definitely, like, a culture to New Zealand. And that's not to say that, like, I love New Zealanders, especially, like, outside of Auckland. Everyone's real. If you go down south, you realize what they like, why people don't like Aucklanders.
But,
like, there's not to say there aren't amazing people here. There definitely is. But I think that, like, it's, there's definitely, like, it's noticeable. And the only reason I really noticed it was because I still remember noticing it when I moved here from, like, at 10 years old, like, you know. So I think that, like, just the way that people view other people is different here to what it might be overseas. I think people are very, very quick to say something about others here. From my experience, that was what I noticed from going from English school playground to New Zealand school playground. That stuck with me. So,
totally different. Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
just from, like, that young age as well. So
I think that's what I noticed, because when I came here, I was 12 when we came here, and one thing that
we all
noticed,
pretty much came like the same bracket.
Same bracket. Yeah, exactly.
I was 13 when
13, 12, 10. Yeah. And what I noticed is, which was quite different from Zimbabwe, is that Zimbabweans will tell you like directly.
Yeah,
whereas in New Zealand, there's that tendency to sort of talk behind someone's back.
Yeah.
And that's the judgmental.
Maybe that's what it is.
Yeah.
The indirectness.
That indirectness, yeah.
I mean, like,
go on.
So it could be lack of, like, support as well from each other, right? I mean, rather than actually, talking up front and say, hey, this, because, like, I mean, that could play a big part as well, right? Like when you're talking behind each other's backs and etc., and that could be a mental issue as well for a lot of people about overthinking, right?
I think
that
lot
happens
of people
everywhere.
just hate confrontation, and in an effort to not cause a scene, we end up talking behind people's back. You know what I mean?
Exactly, but
not like
they don't
with
realize
the intent necessarily of being malicious, but like,
because that's even worse.
Just not wanting to deal with that kind of thing,
That's true.
Yeah,
very true.
100%. Sorry, Nash, you were asking a question. Go ahead.
No, that's right. So now taking what we've just talked about now into the fitness industry, and earlier on you were just talking about how for you, from your personal experience, it came in a season where you weren't necessarily looking after your health in terms of the nutrition side. But with the stats that we know right now, and with the fitness industry as it is right now, with with marketing and with if you're talking about bodybuilding competitions and the judging aspect of it, and many aspects of it, why is it that from your perspectives, there's so many issues still happening with mental health with people that are seemingly looking after their bodies really well? They're looking fantastic to a regular person, to the average person. It's like, man, this person is really winning at life, but then they don't know what's behind that person. They don't know what they've been through, and stuff. Why is that still an issue within the fitness industry, do you think?
Of what, that people are still
not
like believing that they're okay, or like what?
Like maybe the perception is that they've got it all figured out, but then they don't actually know that the person is actually having issues, or
I think it's how it's like this idealistic, like say, for example, and I think I might have mentioned this to you guys before, is when I first started out, I wanted to be a bikini bodybuilder pro because I thought that was the epitome of health. I didn't realize that it wasn't healthy at all, right?
Yeah, it's totally the opposite.
It all comes down to like what your perception of like how you would envision yourself looking or being when you are feeling okay. So like when I picture myself at my happiest and my healthiest, I would be like in shape, glowing, doing all of these things, being really out there, and that's what you show on social media, right? So I think that it's all down to like how you would perceive yourself acting if you were okay. And I think that that's like, and I think that that's why, like, obviously, like some people post on their social media and I commend them for it, them like crying and having gone through this thing, and see it's not perfect all the time. And I have to admit, I've got multiple videos on my phone of me when I'm upset, and the amount of times that I have contemplated posting it, but I just couldn't do it. Not mentally there yet for me to be able to do that. Like, so it takes a really strong person to be able to post that. Because like what I want to do is help people, but I'm not mentally there to be able to do it. I'm just not strong enough to get there yet. So I think like I would love to be able to do that, but I'm not there. But I do think that that's why, like, I mean, a whole purpose of Instagram is to create a perception of yourself or your business. And I think that like that will, whatever perception you've created is what people think of you, right?
Yeah, wow.
I saw that's so true. I saw the other day on my Facebook, and I was scrolling through it, and this girl was crying, and she put some pictures, and there was one of those videos that she was crying and stuff like that, and talking about she's gone through like crazy depression for the past 5 weeks.
Wow.
I mean, like, my question is that gonna help you? Like showing that to millions of people? Like that's just my take. Like,
I
don't
think
know,
that if
like,
I was
is
the
that gonna
reason
help
that
you?
you would, because the reason that I would want to post that is because I know when I was going through that, not
Yeah.
knowing what I know now, like maybe when I first started going through it 10 years ago, if I had seen someone posting that, then it could have completely changed. It could have helped me a lot, basically. So like anyone who's posting stuff like that doesn't give a shit about anybody who is judging them for it. They only care about the 2 or 3 people that it actually helps.
Gonna care.
You know what I mean?
Right.
So like anyone
Right.
who posts something like that has pure intention. I can tell you that now, because
Wow.
it's like I would love to be able to do that, because I know it would help people. I just can't do it. It's like, you have to be really mentally strong to be able to post something like that.
Mental strength. Wow.
Yeah, the reason I asked you that, I mean, thank God, because I have never gone through like that hard depression, anxiety. I don't know about you, Nash. I mean, I've had anxiety, but I've never had like hard depression in my life, and honestly, I never want to get it. I don't wish anyone had it, seriously, because I know my mom's had it, my dad's had it, my sister's had it, my wife has had it. I haven't had at all, so, and I don't want to go through it. You know what I mean?
I think it's something that's definitely like hard for anyone who hasn't gone through it before to understand.
That's exactly why I'm asking you.
Reason at all.
Yeah, because I know when it hits.
The hardest part.
Yeah, because I know when it hits you hard. There's difference between having a normal anxiety attack, and I mean, we've all had it. I've had that at work, gym, and
everyone's
whatever.
Okay?
That's just normal. Like, for example, when I'm doing a sit and I didn't get 15 reps, I'm like, I'm getting anxiety out of nowhere. Now I'm out, you know what I mean? Like, those are just nothing. You know what I mean? I'm not talking about those kind of attacks. I'm actually talking about real stuff here. And that's why I was asking about you about that girl, because I don't know what the perception about that whole thing, I mean, I'm thinking like, is it okay for the post it? Are people are gonna be like, that's how, when you said like she doesn't care, it's about only the 2-3 people that is gonna, I mean, obviously more people actually respond to the post.
Like I tell you now, if anyone felt like that, genuinely would never post that if they didn't want to help someone.
Wow.
Like, there's no way.
Yeah.
No way. Wow. I would never. I'm like I cringe at like knowing the people who have seen me like that.
That's what I mean, man.
Like it's honestly like I don't want anyone to have to witness.
No,
it's horrible. But
that's
like,
what I was thinking.
Yeah, so I think that like you've got to respect people who do post it, because that's like you're literally, have you ever listened to Brene Brown talk about vulnerability?
Yeah.
It's that whole thing of like, there's strength and vulnerability, right? Like you have to be so strong to put yourself at your most vulnerable state, online. Like that's brave. And if anyone's listening to this and hasn't listened to Brene Brown's TED Talk on vulnerability, you have to go and have to listen to it right now.
I'm gonna post a Honestly, link. Yeah, it's one of the best things I've listened to. Yeah,
best thing ever. You listen. She's done quite a few shows since then, and she's amazing.
Yeah,
top notch.
Yeah.
Nash, have you gone through any depression, like hard depression, anxiety?
Not the hard depression, not depression. I haven't been diagnosed with depression.
Same.
Or anything, but I have had in the past like more than just a crap day or a really bad period of time. It's more like it was like a few months, and actually it was part of my journey to jumping back on stage last year, where I had some unfortunate things happen towards the end of 2019, and then it actually really affected the way I was thinking, and it wasn't official counseling or anything like that, but it was I did go through about 4 or 5 months where I was chatting to a couple of people in my world and they were just mentoring me through through this situation. And one of them was actually my dad, and my dad was he's super helpful. He's an occupational therapist, so he does deal with mental health quite a lot. And I do remember that affecting how I go about eating and what I do eat. You know, I would get to the point where I'd be, because I'd let the stress get to me. It made me so much reliant on junk food, and then it got to the point even where I stopped training for a couple of months, and then by the time January came along, and I think that's when I came to see you, Alwin. I was actually at an all-time low in terms of my self-confidence, and
wow.
Yeah, so that's actually probably been the most down I felt ever in my entire life. I can't recall any other time before that. So in some way I can sympathize. I mean, I sympathize with people. I lost a friend a few weeks ago with regards to mental health, with regards to mental health. So it's like it's such a big topic, you know. That's why I guess it's so good that we're talking about it right now. But yeah, that's my experience with it. That's been my experience with it. You know, seeing how it can affect my general responsibility, and I'm starting to get this impression that it's like it's part of my identity and stuff, when actually that's false belief. You know, all the stress, all this anxiety and stuff. I was actually going to ask Katie, how do you, for you yourself, how do you not let it affect your identity when you're going through certain like these adverse things that affect the way you think? Because a lot of people, and like I've just shared, I mean, I've made the mistake in the past where I've had this false belief that, oh, am I good enough? Or, you know, why is this why is it affecting all my responsibilities? How do you not let it affect who you are as Katie, as you know, your identity?
I think it's interesting because the way that I coped with it, I made my job.
Wow.
Yeah.
So the reason I'm so passionate about what I do is because, and I think I said this to you guys last time as well, is that I never want anyone to feel the way that I did, like both mentally, like about like self-body image, you know, like that was my whole reason for doing what I do now. So I think that like my whole being is about, you know, being healthy and looking after yourself and helping others do the same. And I think that like, so essentially is a part of my identity in a positive way, you know, like I don't shun it, because you know, the reason that I'm able to help people in a way that others might not necessarily be able to is because I do go through this or have been through more extreme experiences with this before. Like I haven't hit that point of like absolute rock bottom since I was probably 21, because I have created this approach to managing it that works for me, you know, and I help others do the same. So I think that like, although it's like essentially like a part of my identity, it doesn't control my life. It actually adds to it.
Wow.
So I think that's kind of, you know.
Yeah, I was Nash, remember when Joseph came in the podcast I think a few weeks ago, we asked his message, right? Because I'm gonna ask the same thing with you, Katie, because you're a fitness influencer as well. Do you get hate messages?
Wow.
Have you ever got them?
Yeah. But like, I don't give a fuck about it. Like, I think that it's like, obviously some people can say stuff that like can hurt your feelings, but like, you know, and I know from what my experience, my personal experience being myself, okay, like imagine like, you know, like me, say, talking behind someone's back, bitching about someone or whatever. I would never do that now, right? But I know from experience that anyone doing that it's projecting your own jealousy, insecurity, anger, sadness.
Exactly.
Wow.
I know from my own personal experience that whenever I have been nasty when I was younger, it was because of those reasons. Like,
Wow.
I know that have you ever had anyone who is genuinely happy with themselves say anything nasty about anyone?
No.
Yeah, no.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're very, very sad. So you just got to feel sorry for them. And I think feeling sorry for someone is the worst thing ever. I would hate for someone to feel sorry for me, you know?
Yeah.
So I think
exactly.
that's where it's like, oh, like, I'm so sorry you're going through this. Like, delete.
Yeah.
You know, like, I think like it's they're the one with the problem, not you.
Yeah.
Like, no matter what they've said, because like anyone who said something is trying to hurt you, and anyone who is trying to hurt you obviously has issues.
Yeah.
I've seen this. I've seen this with there's a bodybuilder who's competing in the Olympia next week, and he has a reputation of replying to people that critique his body.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And
who's this?
It's Patrick Moore.
Oh,
Patrick
yeah,
Moore,
I do follow him, but I don't follow him much.
What kind of stuff does he say? Like,
either just he's either trying to he's trying to give them an answer, like an actual, like, for instance, if someone is saying, I don't know, your back is not as developed as it is, you know, he will call them out saying, well, it sounds like he goes on their profile. And then I remember seeing one where it was like, oh, your profile is private, you must be insecure in yourself or something like that, and blatantly calls them out on
I mean, it's true though, right? I think I wouldn't even bother giving someone, like, wasting my energy on a reply because I don't have time for that. But like, you know, like, I think that the more, like, people need to be more self-aware, and I think what people need to realize from a younger age is that, like, that is what is called projection. I don't think people learn what projecting is until they're far too old and have already done it. So, like, I think that, like, you know, I think that that's something that, like, you know, I will be teaching my kids from a young age what projection is, you know, and I didn't even know what that meant until like 2 years ago. You know, I'm just about to turn 28, you know, like, so I think, like, it's the things that we are well aware of now that we didn't learn when we were younger. I think that's going to make the difference later down the track, because, like, I don't think people were as self-aware as we are these days. Or I feel like people in the health and wellness industry are quite self-aware, because it's all about health and wellness, right? And like how you feel about yourself, or like, you know, like you're talking about, you know, giving people advice, and so you analyze, and, you know, like that kind of thing. But yeah, I think I'm hoping that people just learn to, you know, everybody learns, you know, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it. But I just hope that actually sticks one day. It's like, you know, it's like, oh, that's what that means. I get it now.
Yeah, it's an absolute good a major topic that you know, this issue, especially in New Zealand, man. Like, oh man, like, you know, especially because you know, a lot of my, you know, couple of as I told you, Nash, couple of my friends actually passed away, you know, who came to the gym and stuff like that. I mean, you know, I hope that a lot of people who are watching us will learn something out of this today. You know, like, always don't be afraid to reach out.
And I think it's also like, you don't have to be diagnosed to need help. Like, I was diagnosed with depression when I was 18, but like, they were way too quick to like hand out medication and say that, you know what I mean? So then it did become a part of my identity. However, I just, like, you could be like, especially with the lockdown going on, like, you don't have to go to a doctor and be told this to know that you are going through a struggle. And I feel like you don't actually have to be like clinically depressed to be going through a bout of depression or sadness that you need help with. So I think that, like, people feel like it needs to be at a certain point of severity to ask for help. And I really just don't think that's the case. Like, I mean, everyone has down days, but even on those down days, like, you know, like I've got like a group chat with my girlfriends, and if we're having a shit day, like, you know, we're able to say to each other, you know, like, oh, like, do you want to jump on a call? Like, you know, should we have a FaceTime one? Like, do you want to talk about it? Or when we're out of lockdown, you know, they're like, come over for dinner. Like, you know, I just think it's so important that you reach out to support people and know that, like, you don't have to be severely or chronically anxious or depressed or sad to have help and support.
How do you think people can? Yeah, that's so good. How do you think people can do that amongst the gym community, like at their gyms, you know, with PTs and with even club managers? I'll give you an example. Actually, I go to a really cool gym. It's a small gym. It's one of the City Fitness ones, and one of the great things they've done is actually build this family-like atmosphere. It's actually my favorite out of all the City Fitness. I'm not going to say which one it is because
you but, say that for some reason.
Just don't want to ruin some relationships. But what they've done is they've built a really cool like family-like atmosphere, and people are actually able to talk about the issue. Like if they're going through something, people are actually able to rally around them. And for me, with previous gyms that I've been to before City Fitness even was in my life, that was never the case. It was always just good morning at the reception, and then, oh, have a good day. You know, I think that's a pretty cool atmosphere that's set. So my question for you is, for people listening, how do you think they can go about maybe reaching out to people within the gym, especially when they start making friends in the gym and they start, you know, having like a training partner, and you're not necessarily just talking about training, you know, you actually being able to get to know each other, but beyond that?
Well, I think that like I know that, for example, Grant, who works at Ed Muscle, is another one of the trainers, is a huge mental health advocate.
Is he still working at
Yeah.
Oh,
So
awesome.
he's still there, but he's got his own gym as well. I know that like if anyone went up to him and, you know, needed help, he would talk to them straight off that. I know that Dee would as well, was one of the trainers. So it's me, Dee, and Grant with the trainers. The guys in the shop more than willing to chat as well. I think that like there's definitely like I get messages quite a lot from other clients or others like asking, you know, like talking about stuff like this. And I think that like I'm like obviously more than happy to talk about this kind of stuff, but then it gets to a point where like I'm not an expert on mental health, etc. So like it's hard for me to gauge when someone needs more help. So I feel like, you know, if you've got your support system and your family around you, if you're going to be reaching out to anyone, like, yeah, it's great to be able to, you know, say, oh, I'm having a bad day. And, you know, I'm more than happy for people to say that to me. But like, I would hate for someone to think that I could be their like therapist in the gym.
Yeah.
Because I don't know if I have the right advice to be talking to these people. So like, they can chat to anyone and there's like a family vibe and like any, you know, we're all more than happy to help. But if it comes to something that's, you know, if you just want someone to talk to and you're just feeling a bit shit, go right ahead. But if you're like really concerned, I would reach out to someone who has more qualified with, you know, say like my sister, for example, she's doing health psychology. So I'd be like, go and talk to my sister kind of thing. Like, you know, so I think like, there's definitely like an openness within our gym. I'm more than happy to like talk to anyone, and we're mental health advocates, and like even if someone just needs a little bit more support, that's fine. But I think just knowing what you're in need of, like the, you know, what you feel like the support kind of support you need is important.
Great. So good.
Really good. That's awesome. Have you covered everything mental health wise?
I think obviously it's a never-ending issue, but I think maybe just as a as a final, maybe a final sort of question, what advice can you sort of give to people listening, just around reaching out, just around even being in the other situation, being in the other the other situation where they've got people reaching out to them?
I think that like if you've got people reaching out to you, it obviously means they feel like you're approachable and that like, you've got something to offer them in terms of help, which is great, I think, but just knowing your responsibility to refer them to someone if needed, and if not,
100%.
I think just, you have to be prepared to, if you are investing your time listening to someone and giving them advice, you need to commit to that. You cannot do it once or twice and then say, I'm not doing this anymore. Because when you're dealing with someone in a specific mental state, a lot of, you don't know what they're triggered by, and abandonment could be one of those things. So I think like when it comes to, it depends on like, there's a difference between like a little bit of advice and support, again, like I said before, but like if you've got someone talking to you decide you want to be there for them, you have to see it through. I think that's what I would advise. You can't just say, oh, I'm sick of this now, like go and talk to someone else, because I think like it takes a lot for someone to open up to someone else. So yeah, that's kind of what I would say.
Great.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to talk some nutrition stuff, but Katie, you got a client soon, right?
Yes, I do, in about 20 minutes now.
Okay. I mean,
so I've got to hop off.
Yeah, but definitely. I was gonna say, guys, if you guys wanna, reach out for help, always, reach out, because that's the best thing you could do. Especially if you're going through something, do not be afraid to reach someone, because I think a lot of people are hiding themselves and not saying this stuff. And I mean, Nash, you got to say anything or what before we close up?
Yeah, absolutely. I think what Katie's covered has been actually great and very welcoming. So thanks a lot, Katie. I think
thank you.
Just to add to what you've both said as well. From in terms of reaching out to people, please do check in with people. Nobody's got it all together. And also 100%. And also, if you're going through something as well, you're welcome to talk to the people in your world. Let's not be in that position, all of us, where we're judging and we were putting conclusions amongst people, because you just don't know what people are. I saw something the other day. Brené Brown's actually said that quite a lot. I remember reading a book of hers 2 years ago around vulnerability. I cannot remember the book, but you have to be kind to people always, because you have no idea what people are going through behind closed doors. I remember last year when Chadwick Boseman had died, the guy who played Black Panther, and people were criticizing his weight loss. But he had actually kept private that, and you guys are aware, that he had been battling cancer for 5 years, or something like that, 4 years.
And he played those roles. Exactly. Like going through chemo as well. It was insane what he was pushing through.
Exactly. So
you had no idea.
Yeah. So you just don't know what people are going through in the background. That's why it's so crucial to be kind, and that way we can help contribute to a greater level of mental health. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Do you have anything final to say, Katie?
Before we close
I think like just you kind of hit the nail on the head there. Like just. You have no idea even what your kind words do for people. Great. Like I think even if you just say, if you have a compliment or something nice to say, don't be afraid to say that as well. Because I know that like even the simplest thing, like even just someone saying hi to me has made the world of a difference on a bad day. Do that.
That's awesome. Thank you, Katie. Really appreciate you coming again on the show. Obviously, we'll get you back again to talk about different other topics, and much appreciated again for showing up. And guys, don't forget to watch this interview. It'll be available on Spotify, YouTube, and that's it. Spotify, YouTube.
Yeah, actually now on Google as well, Google Play.
Oh, Google Play. Yes.
Yeah,
There you go.
Yeah.
And stay tuned for more guests coming in, more episodes that we can reach out with different topics.
Yeah.
Make sure to subscribe to us, do all the good stuff, like us, go subscribe to our pages on Instagram, etc. Until next time, God bless you all. See you guys.
See you.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you.
No problem. Bye.